Everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. We're delighted to have everyone here with us today as we return to do another segment of Activate Innerstanding. You are welcome to our conversation. You are welcome to this space. I am Dr. Lauretta Halstead, and I come to sit with you and invite you to think with us as we activate innerstanding. Innerstanding begins at the place or with the idea that we come here to this earth in this iteration of ourselves. We come here knowing and understanding, but through the gates of trauma, which birth is, and believe me, as a woman who has been blessed to become a mother, birth is a traumatic experience for both mother and child. It is through the gates of trauma that we actually forget those things that we once understood. And so we invite you to activate innerstanding. It's in you already, and we are here to stir that up. And with me once again today, I'm absolutely delighted once again to have with me the inimitable Judah Hatcher. Judah, welcome once again.
Thank you for having me once again.
It's always a delight, always a delight.
Yes,
and so we're going to pick up, let's jump right in and pick up where we were the last time when we began to speak about trauma. And as you raised the last time, there are many different types of trauma. There's physical trauma. When you break your arm, you break your leg. There is social, psychological trauma, things like violence, racism. These are social and collective traumas that we have, whether we are aware of carrying them or not. They are very real. And there's also a spiritual trauma, symbolized frequently by the notion, the idea of exile, being separated from, being disconnected from, being disjointed with something. So that idea of exile, that theme of exile and alienation and isolation, that runs through the thread of our core spiritualities. We want to just think about that today as we pick up once again about trauma. We're going to speak specifically on the notion and the idea of grief, the experience, I should say, of grief and loss, something that is very, very real to each of us. It is something that none of us really gets to escape in this life. You will have loss, you will grieve. And so we're going to pick up there. And Judah, we were last time discussing the point when you were sharing with me that day, as I remember to this one, that grief is a bully. And you were talking about, as you were describing that, you took us really to a place where the question that we had with each other was, what do you do when you're in pain and in paradise? You're in paradise. Everything is perfect. Everything is lovely. Everything is wonderful. And you're in pain. What do you do with that? How do you manage that? And so I want you to speak with that, sir.
Well, that's a good question. Definitely something that is continuing and learning. I'm continually learning how to deal with pain in paradise with the understanding that most of us understand paradise to be a specific place or specific conditions, and also learning that paradise is a mental state, can be a mental state as well. And so, and then understanding that pain, the purpose of pain, pain having a purpose. And normally, like when we speak of physical pain, like that's a signal to your body to stop what you're doing, alerting you, making you aware that there's something going on so that you can stop whatever it is that was causing that pain, treating it, and rest if necessary. And so when we experience our, I guess, emotional pains or psychological pains, There's definitely things that our physical pain teach us, to to reflect on, what it is that's actually causing us the pain, to examine, what's going on. Is this even real? Considering our environments, am I physically in harm's way right now? Okay, what's going on? Do I need to make any adjustments? And do I need to rest to get through this, to get over this? My example of paradise, like physical paradise, was in Diani Beach, Kenya. And we went to Kenya, I think it was a year and a half ago. And while I was there, there's a place called the Congo River. And at this place is where the Indian Ocean, and I have no idea why they called it the Indian Ocean when it's in Africa. I'm sorry for that segue. But the Indian Ocean and the Congo River meet. And there seems to be whatever law in motion there, that the boundaries are respected. The river isn't going into the ocean isn't coming into the river. And so to see that in itself is like a wonderful sight to behold. And then there, just seeing the children laughing and playing in the water, seeing the gratitude that's there. The best meal that I had in Kenya was at this place, and it was the fish came out of a bucket, and the man cooked the fish with a frying pan on the ground. So didn't have a whole bunch of high tech equipment. However, the humility and the gratitude, and everyone appreciated this. And this gentleman, I don't know if he has intentions on expanding, but if he doesn't, like the pride that he took in preparing this meal, and it was the best meal that I had in Kenya. And so seeing my physical, what I think to this day, like there's a tree of life growing in the middle of the river.
Wow.
What looks like a tree of life, what we call the tree of life, growing in the middle of the river, and just seeing the happiness, the joy, the boundaries, the harmony that was there. I remember while I was sitting down eating my food, it was about 10 or 12 young men that I did not know, had never seen before, just came and sat where I was sitting. And so initially it was like, okay, what's going on? The Baltimore in me was like, what's this?
The spidey sense.
Right. And so, but after quickly observing, like they just, for whatever reason, wanted to be around me, and I ended up sharing my food, and all was well. And physically, that's my example of paradise. And so, but what I took away from that again is, in that place, boundaries were established. And so mentally understanding that sometimes we have to establish boundaries, understanding that we need to understand who we are and where we are, and know where we want to go. And so when we experience pains, of course, we adjust. We tend to the pain that we're having, but understanding that the pain is not intended to paralyze us, but to cause us to adjust.
That's very important. And it's interesting. I want to pick up on what you said about the boundaries, because when you want to be free from anything, even if whether that's pain or whatever it is, you have to have boundaries. There is no freedom without boundaries, because when the boundaries are breached, you have chaos and disorder. And I want to ask you another question. So you're in paradise. You're surrounded by who you want to be surrounded by. You're eating what you want to eat. You are undoubtedly sitting in a temperature that makes you comfortable, looking at beautiful things. You're looking at a nice river. You're probably hearing fantastic sounds, knowing you. There has to be some good music somewhere in this trip. So how is it then? You're in paradise. Look at this spiritually now. You're in paradise, experiencing the ultimate good, which is God. But you're experiencing ultimate good in the most horrific way,
Wow.
which is grief and loss, in a way that feels like it's evil. How is that experience? How is it that you were able to even balance your own experience within yourself, the rivers within you that breach their boundaries?
Right.
Which grief creates a certain chaos in us emotionally. So how were you able to, what is your experience of that? Or where are you in that process?
My experience in that is allowing myself to go through that moment. Um, I used to try to fight it. For whatever reason, there's a saying, especially dealing with grief, be strong. I really don't understand what is intended by that, but most people take that meaning to not grieve, to not cry, to put on a brave face. And so what I'm learning to do is to actually allow myself to have my moment, to go through it with the understanding that it's okay. It's okay. And then trying to allowing myself to also enjoy my now, and sometimes like to enjoy my moments, to have gratitude and appreciation for the people that I'm in paradise with, my wife and my children. 95% of the trips I take with my family, and so my wife and my daughters are with me even when I'm having my moments, and so allowing myself to have them and not beating myself up or feeling guilty for having this moment. Well, what's wrong with you? How can you have all of these things in front of you, but now something has triggered you to the point of sadness? Had to clarify that because I was talking to someone, and most people, for some reasons, some people just associate the word trigger with anger, and so something triggering me to the point of sadness, whether, like I said previously, something I'm seeing or something I'm hearing, and allowing myself to reflect, acknowledge, and trying to learn to focus on the good of those experiences, the good memory of those experiences, and then appreciating my now. I remember when we were in the height of our situation, and one of the assignments that you gave myself and Janelle was to write the things that you were grateful for. It's like continuously, like each night, write 5 things that you were grateful for, and just remembering those assignments. And so when things aren't looking the way I think they should be looking, I'm on this trip and there's 4 of us, but there should be 5. And but still being and I should say 4 of us physically present, when there should be 5 of us physically present, but just being grateful for the good times and remembering the good times, and also being grateful for the now, being grateful for the moment, that particular moment, and then just again understanding that while there are the locations physical places, understanding that the true paradise is mental. You know what I mean? It's in your mindset, because it's one thing that I learned from Jordan when we went to Ghana. So there's a difference between West Africa and East Africa, from my perspective, like the pulse. And so in Ghana, the hustle is like, well, specifically Accra. We were in Accra. It's like the hustle is ever present. Like I've never seen anybody work that hard before in my life, but yet the contentment, the smiles, the peace, and Jordan. And so I'm looking at Jordan and I'm saying, you see that? And I'm talking about the hustle. Like they got it. They know how to hustle, and they're selling, whether it's water, food, clothing, whatever, and it's 24/7. And he's like, yes, I see that. But he wasn't talking about what I was saying. He was saying, I see that these people have peace. These people are happy. These people, don't appear to have what we consider to things that will make one happy: money, clothes, jewelry, the ability to go where you want. On the surface, it didn't appear that they had these things, some of them, but yet you could tell in their eyes, the way they communicated, the excitement, the happiness, and the peace and the joy that they appear to have. And that was something that Jordan immediately saw, which caused me to pause and consider, like, wow, here we're looking at the same exact things, but yet our takeaway was completely different. So, yeah.
So let me ask you, with that, what is it possible to your thinking for someone to be in the same circumstance, and I'm getting enjoyment out of it, and you're getting pain out of it? It's causing you to suffer. And I'm raising that point because it's important for us to, it's trauma. One of the things that we do that creates trauma is to encourage people to repress their emotions. Repressing the emotions is not the same as managing your emotions.
Wow.
We have to manage our emotions when we're grieving and when we're traumatized. And I think sometimes we have been guilty, just from a spiritual template perspective, of having people to repress their emotions. As you were speaking about earlier, be strong. You should be happy. There's someone else who doesn't have what you have even. And for us to own our own feelings, to recognize them, and then manage them. But repression is not a healthy thing for us most of the time. I mean, of course, there are times when it's better if we are not focused on it, perhaps. But I think it's important for us to manage our emotions while respecting our wounds. You have to respect the injury that is grief, respect the injury that is loss and bereavement, because it's looking at the wound that you're going to get your healing.
Wow.
And I would submit to you that the code for your healing individually is in your scar. And the code for my healing is going to be in my scars. So it's important for us to look at our scars, even when they don't hurt anymore. I don't know about you, Judah, but I still have some scars from my childhood, and they're not bleeding anymore. And I don't need a Band-Aid physically on them anymore, but I still have the scars from some of those things that I tried when I was younger, like when I learned how to do a wheelie, for example. I still have those scars to remind me. about that, and I can relate to it and remember that time through the scars. And I think sometimes we resurrect, if you will, past traumas and past wounds by the act of repressing our emotions around it. Don't worry, be happy. Get over it. It's been 2 weeks, it's been 2 years. You still upset, you still hurt, you're still grieving, you're still crying. What are you upset about? You have everything. You have a nice job, you have a beautiful wife, you have beautiful daughters. What's the problem? Why are you upset? Are you ungrateful? So those kinds of things, how do you experience that in your real life, in real time?
I have experienced all of the above, and unfortunately, and I don't think it was due to malice. Most of those things have been said to me,
Yes.
and so,
And we've said some of them probably, right?
yes,
Yes.
and yes, and
Get-
two things. One with the physical scars. Like I too
Mhm,
have physical scars from my childhood,
mhm.
and it's amazing. There's one specific incident. I got bit by a dog in my lip, and so under my mustache, there's a scar going straight down instead of my. Till this day, I still have it. And,
It's dogs in the mouth, Judah. Shouldn't do that.
right. And my grandmama told me, don't play with the dog while it's eating. And for some whatever reason, I got down and decided to play with this dog while it was eating, and it was a Pekingese, and it turned around and it just snapped me right in my lip. And so I remembered that experience, and I learned not to do that
You
anymore.
never did it again.
Never did it again. But the thing that stood out the most to me and that stands out the most was the love and the care that my grandmother gave me in
Mm,
ensuring that I was okay. And so, yes, when I cut my mustache off and I see that scar, I'm reminded of how it got there, but also the love that I received and healing. And, my grandmother did her best to clean it out, and when she determined that I need stitches, she took me to the doctors, and she was there holding my hand when they stuck the needle in my mouth to numb it. And and I remember that, and I'm so grateful for her love, and this scar being a reminder of the love that she gave me in getting over that physical pain. And so I think it's important that as we go through our emotional traumas and our specifically grief, that
mhm.
it's important to definitely concentrate on the love, not just the love of our loved ones present, but the love that was shared, that is shared between you and your departed loved one.
Good.
I know beyond a shadow of a doubt that my son loves me. And I know that he knew and that he knows that I love him. And so when I have my moments, those are the things that um, you and others have told me. Like I remember one time you were saying, uh, my gift is that I'm a thinker, and how sometimes my gift can also become my noose because I'm constantly thinking. And sometimes in my thinking and my imagination, sometimes I get off on the wrong track, unfortunately, and I start imagining and thinking things that were not reality, that were never true. And so um, and when I get on that path, it's just okay. What are the things that I know to be true? And the things that I know to be true is my son loves me, and I love my son. And so when I'm in my painful moments, and I know for one beyond a shadow of a doubt Jordan would not want me, his mom, or his sisters to allow our grief to paralyze us. Like he absolutely would not want that at all, you know. And so, and when I'm conscious of that, it allows me to, you know, press forward.
Thank you for sharing that, because that is a wonderful model and example of what it means to have the code of your healing is in the scar. Mm-hmm. It's in the wound. When you look at the wound, you remember the love of your grandmother. Mm-hmm. When you feel the pain of the loss of Jordan, you feel the loving presence of Jordan. And I really want to lift up how you spoke about that in present tense. You said, I love him and he loves me. Not loved, but loves. It's ongoing. Although the physical body, the material body will return to the dust, as we say in religious language, or even in scientific language, right? That it's going to go back where it came from, which is going to disintegrate into the dust. And for those of you who don't believe that, you can just look at yourselves in the mirror and see how, as you get older, things shift around a little bit. And so we're returning to the dust as we speak. But the spirit remains up and out of us, and that it yet lives, and you can find that embrace of love, although it's through the scar of losing the physical presence of your son, but gaining a different level of connectedness to him. And you had to do that through the door of trauma, but the healing that you walk toward, that I walk toward, as I count my losses and just walk toward love. I think that that's critical and a bottom line aspect of our experience. But speak to those for a moment, Judah, who are in the heated part of the struggle and the battle and the experience of grief and loss. That time when you can't find a beam of light, your heart is so broken, you can't even find even a beam of light to grab a hold of when it is dark and when it is chaotic. What words can you say to encourage someone to keep moving forward?
Wow. Wow. I would definitely, one of the things, when within hours of me learning of the passing of Jordan, one of the first thoughts that came to me was, think of him lovingly, not disparagingly, and or despairingly. And I would encourage people to think of your loved one in the most loving and caring manners. I would also and allow encourage people to allow yourself to grieve the loss of your loved one. Um, yeah, that's important. I had so many people, and I know they meant well. I know they meant that, okay, you are hurting the loss of your child, but you're still a husband and a father, and you are still expected to lead your family. And so the whole notion of be strong, just be strong, be strong. Like, I thank God that I had others around me, to include yourself, to include some of my fraternity brothers, to include some of my lodge brothers, that were giving me permission or reminding me that it's okay to grieve the loss of your child. You know what I mean? It's like, it's to giving me my space and my time necessary to reflect, to heal. And I would encourage anyone that's in the heat of trauma, the heat of loss, to definitely mourn the loss of your loved one. It's okay. Like, it is okay. I would encourage them to do so in the most safe and healthy manner possible. I would encourage them to reach out to a counselor. I would encourage them, if a support group is available, to find and join a support group. Um, but not to think of themselves as strange, weak, alien, for grieving, mourning the loss of their departed loved one, and to know that um, uh, it gets better. It gets better, and I say that hesitantly, but because I never thought that would be able to say that. Like, what do you mean it gets better? And what I mean by that, you're I know I have never said, oh, my child is in a better place. That's not what I'm saying. Um, what
Ooh.
I'm saying by it gets better is, as time goes on, you learn how to function better. You learn how to deal, you learn how to live, you learn how to move forward, you learn how to do your day-to-day activities, you learn how to do the things that are expected of you better as time goes on. As you practice better, as you practice doing the right things, as you practice doing the healthy things, as you practice doing everything that you can do to move forward, things get better. Now, the flip side of that, if you don't do anything to aid yourself, to help yourself, um, it's possible that things won't get better. And so, like, it doesn't magically happen. There isn't the 1 year the 1 year cycle, and your year first, and all the things, your first holidays, your first birthdays, your first, and so you have those, but just because those things happen, that doesn't mean that year two you're instantly better because you went through the first year. No.
Oh, come on, Judah. Come on, Judah. You're a strong man now. How are you going to be sad and you're a year out and just start crying and you're a strong man? How can you grieve and be sad? I mean, come on, how does this happen?
It happens.
We're
And I
strong
give
people
my and
and
I
we can
give
have.
my and I give myself permission to allow it to happen. Like, there's no way that I can physically, for a long period of time, contain, uh, there, as you stated, like, there is no reservoir for grief, so I can try to suppress it for a day or two or whatever, but it comes out, and I allow myself um, the moment for it to come out. Like, and I don't look at myself as strange. I don't look at myself, more importantly, as weak, um, because I'm grieving, when I have my moments, my hard moments, of mourning the loss of my son. And so,
What makes you not weak? What makes you not weak? What makes you not weak?
because what makes me not weak is understanding that I'm being true to myself. I'm being real to myself. I'm keeping it real, as they say. Like, um, this is who I am. Um, the love between my son and I is strong, so um, it's true, so me, I think it would be weak of me to put on this facade that I'm not hurting or not pain, and that, like, I think that would be weak, um, to try to put on a front to please other people. um, I think, and I'm not judging anyone who does that. I think that will be weak of me if I were to be more concerned about other people viewing me in a negative posture because I have my moments of mourning and grieving the loss of my son, as opposed to me being true to myself and allowing myself to go through those moments until I don't have to for that moment, for that time and period. You know what I mean? And understanding that just because I stopped crying today doesn't mean by Saturday I won't have to cry anymore. Doesn't mean on Saturday that I may not have a moment where I'm like, oh man, this is real. And I still have those moments where it's like, this is real. Like this, I haven't awakened from this nightmare yet. I haven't awakened from this dream yet. And so
How
if you
can you
find,
how can, how can you have faith? How can you have faith though, and have a problem with the notion of Jordan being in a better place? Where's your faith, sir?
um, I have faith, but I don't think in my particular case that, well, let me say it this way. I've learned to not, and I understand when people say it, it's what their meaning is their loved one isn't suffering anymore. And so, especially if someone was chronically ill or going through something that was very painful, they were sick for a while, and they passed. And so one of the things we say to the bereaved family is, hey, they're in a better place. Thinking that what we're telling them is at least your loved one isn't suffering or in pain anymore. And so I believe that's what we mean when we say that. But in actuality, that still doesn't, that's not comforting at the time. That is not filling the void or the hole in the heart that you have from the absence of your departed loved one. You know what I mean? Like that doesn't fill that hole when you say, oh, they're in a better place. Because the best place in my mind is for them to be right here with me so that I can hug them, kiss them, and know that they are okay. The best place is for them to be here with me. And so yeah, I know spiritually we say, and we've been taught to be absent with from the body is to be present with the Lord. And so I understand all of that from a spiritual context, but in the physical, no one would have allowed me to ever believe that the best place for any of my children to be is to be away from me, because I've done everything I know to do to provide the safest place for them on earth. And so the notion that, oh, he's in a better place, well, what was wrong with him being with me? And so that's why we have to be careful when we are dealing with people who have lost loved ones in the words that we say, regardless of what our intentions are. Because sometimes the most well-meaning intentions can still cause pain, can sometimes be offensive, and now there is a conflict. All I said was, well, what's wrong with you? Well, I don't want to go around because you angry, and you know what I mean? But the root of it is you said something meaning well, but sometimes the best thing to do is just to be quiet. And I'm learning that. And I hope I'm not going, it bothers me. It has bothered me for a while. And most people know, some people don't know that my first major in school was mortuary science. And so I worked in a funeral business for 3 years. And so I've been to more funerals than I ever thought I would go to. I've been around grief for that was my profession. And so for a moment in time, and when people would say to the bereaved, if there's anything I can do for you, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
That's the
Wow.
most well-sounding statement ever, but it burns me up every time I hear it, if I'm allowed to be personal. Because what you're doing is you're now putting the responsibility on the bereaved to now think of something that you can do. Because you just said, if there's anything I can do. Well, the one thing that I would want you to do is to bring my lost loved one back. Can you do that?
And wow. And that I tell you, that's a powerful question. Can you do that?
Can you do that?
And you in great Judah style, you have brought us to a point of leaving us with a great song, an old hymn, Blessed Quietness. And I thank you for your openness and your transparency. And thank you for sharing that with us. And for next time, I do want to tap into that more as I leave you with the question. What do you do when your loved one is now in a better place and you're in a worse one?
Wow.
So we'll pick up there next time, Judah. And I thank you so much again for your time, for your wisdom and your transparency, and inviting everyone to join us for part 3 as we activate Innerstanding. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.